Welcome everyone to our discussion today. We are going to talk about a very interesting and modern question. The question is, should competitive video gaming, also known as esports, be officially recognized as a sport? This topic is debated by many people around the world. With us today, we have two guests to share their views. First, we have Sarah, who believes esports should be seen as a sport. And second, we have Mark, who has a different opinion on this matter. Sarah and Mark will each give an opening statement. Then, they will present their main arguments and have a chance to respond to each other. Finally, they will give their closing statements. Let's begin.
Thank you, Alex. Good morning to everyone watching. I'm here today to argue that esports, or competitive video gaming, truly deserves to be recognized as an official sport. When we say esports, we mean video games played at a professional level, with organized competitions. Many people think sports must involve running or jumping, but I believe the definition is wider and can include more types of competition. Esports shares many important elements with traditional sports, which I will explain. First, let's talk about skill. Esports players need amazing skills to compete at the top level. They need very quick reflexes, excellent hand-eye coordination, and the ability to make fast decisions under a lot of pressure. It's not just about playing games for fun. It's about high-level strategic thinking and teamwork, very similar to what you see in football or basketball. Second, esports is highly competitive. There are huge international tournaments that attract millions of viewers. Millions of fans watch these events, both online and in big arenas, cheering for their favorite teams and players. The prize money in these tournaments can be millions of dollars, which clearly shows how serious and professional these competitions are. Third, esports professionals train very hard, much like other athletes. They practice for many hours every day. They work with coaches, they analyze their games, and they focus on improving their performance. The world is changing, and our understanding of sports should also change and adapt to these new forms of competition. Esports is growing incredibly fast, with millions of players and fans all over the world. It is time to give it the recognition it deserves as a sport.
Good morning, Alex, Sarah, and everyone listening to this discussion. I understand why Sarah says esports are like sports. And I agree that esports are very popular and definitely require a lot of skill from the players. Players are very talented, and the competitions themselves are often very exciting to watch. However, I believe that esports should not be officially recognized as a sport in the traditional sense of the word. My main argument is that esports lacks a very important part of what makes something a sport: significant physical activity and exertion. When we think of sports like football, swimming, or athletics, they all involve using your whole body in a dynamic way. These activities make you physically stronger, improve your endurance, and contribute to overall physical health. While esports players need quick fingers and good reactions, it is not the same as the kind of physical effort and athleticism we see in traditional sports. Also, we should carefully consider the health aspects. Traditional sports usually promote physical health and an active lifestyle. Playing sports helps people stay active and fit. It's good for your heart, your muscles, and your general well-being. On the other hand, playing video games for many hours, even competitively, can unfortunately lead to certain health problems. These problems can include issues with eyes from looking at screens, back pain from sitting for long periods, and a lifestyle that is not very active. So while I respect esports players and their dedication to their craft, I think we need to keep the definition of sport for activities that clearly involve more comprehensive physical exercise. Esports can be a great competitive activity, a legitimate pursuit, but it's different from what we historically and commonly understand as sport.
Mark has made some interesting points, especially about the element of physical activity in sports. However, I think the idea of physical activity in sports can be looked at differently and perhaps more broadly. For example, let's think about sports like chess or shooting. These are recognized as sports by many organizations, and shooting is even an Olympic sport. These activities don't involve running or jumping, but they demand incredible mental focus, precision, control, and consistency, which are also physical skills in their own specific way. Esports players also experience definite physical demands. Their hands can make hundreds of actions per minute, what we call APM, or actions per minute. This requires extremely fine motor skills, dexterity, and stamina in the hands and wrists. It's a specific kind of physical exertion. Playing in long tournaments for many hours also needs a lot of endurance, both mentally to stay focused and physically to keep performing at a high level. Some players even report physical tiredness, similar to what other athletes feel after very long and intense matches or tournament days. Beyond just the physical action, the structures around esports are very similar to those in traditional sports. There are professional teams with dedicated coaches, analysts, and support staff. There are organized leagues and regular seasons that teams compete in. Players often follow strict training schedules, and some even manage their diets to stay in top condition for competition, focusing on cognitive performance. It's also important to note that the International Olympic Committee itself has been discussing esports and its potential future inclusion in events. This clearly shows that the global sporting community is taking esports very seriously and considering its place. It's not just a casual game anymore. It's a structured, highly competitive discipline that demands high levels of skill, strategy, and dedication from its participants.
Sarah, you're right that sports like chess and shooting are often mentioned in this type of discussion as examples. However, it's also true that even the place of these activities as sports is sometimes debated by people, precisely because they don't involve a lot of visible, intense whole-body physical activity. The main idea, the primary image of sport for most people in society, still involves a significant amount of physical movement and athleticism that benefits the entire body. You mentioned training, and yes, esports players do train hard. I don't disagree with that at all. But their training is mostly focused on game strategy, specific in-game skills, and reaction times, not primarily on developing overall physical fitness in the same comprehensive way an athlete in a traditional sport does. A footballer's training, for instance, builds muscle strength, cardiovascular stamina, and agility across their entire body. This is fundamentally different from the specialized training of an esports player. I also have a serious worry about what happens if we put esports on the same level as traditional sports, especially when we think about young people. If schools and official sporting bodies start treating esports exactly like football or basketball, will it take away focus and valuable resources from activities that encourage children to be physically active and healthy? We already have a growing problem in many countries with young people not getting enough daily exercise. And I fear that calling esports a sport might unintentionally make this problem worse. It might send a message that sitting in front of a screen for many hours is just as good for you as running on a field, from a health and physical development perspective. Esports can be a fantastic and respected competition in its own right. It can have its own championships, its own stars, and its own dedicated following. But it doesn't need the sport label to be legitimate or successful. It's a unique activity and can be celebrated as such without needing to fit into another category.
To summarize my position, I truly believe that esports has earned its place and should be recognized as a sport. We've discussed how it demands extremely high levels of skill, quick decision-making under pressure, and intense strategic thinking from all its top competitors. Professional esports players dedicate countless hours to focused training and practice, just like dedicated athletes in other more traditional fields. The competitive structures are clearly there. We see professional teams, organized leagues, and massive global tournaments that attract millions of passionate fans. The definition of sport is not something that is fixed in stone. It has changed and evolved over time with society and technology. It can, and I believe it should, continue to evolve to include new forms of competition like esports. Recognizing esports officially as a sport can bring many significant benefits. It could lead to better funding and more robust support systems for players. It could also mean more opportunities for academic scholarships based on esports talent and official recognition for their hard-earned achievements. This isn't about replacing traditional sports at all, but it is about expanding our understanding of what competitive excellence can look like in the 21st century. Esports is a global phenomenon that engages millions of people, both as players and as spectators, and it's time we acknowledge its legitimacy as a true and modern sport.
In closing my arguments, I want to repeat that I have great respect for the skill, the dedication, and the passion of esports players. The world of competitive gaming is certainly impressive, and it is growing very quickly, there is no doubt about that. However, the main point of difference for me, and it's a crucial one, is still the lack of significant whole-body physical activity that is so central to the traditional and common understanding of sport. Sports, as a category of human activity, have always been very closely linked to physical health, to overall physical development, and to promoting active lifestyles. I believe it is very important to protect this meaning and this association. Calling esports a sport might confuse this important message, especially for young people who are forming their habits. Esports can be, and indeed is, a very successful and legitimate competitive activity on its own terms, with its own unique characteristics. It doesn't need to be called a sport in order to be valued, respected, or to continue its growth. We can celebrate esports for exactly what it is, a challenging, mentally demanding, and exciting form of digital competition without needing to change the fundamental definition of sport. Let's keep the term sport for activities that clearly involve and actively promote physical fitness and broad athleticism in the way we've always understood it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you, Mark, for sharing your strong arguments and very different views with us today. It has been a very interesting and thought-provoking discussion for everyone, I'm sure. Sarah has argued that esports, with its high requirement for skill, its intense level of competition, and the dedicated training of its players, fits a modern definition of sport. She strongly believes that our definition of sport can and should evolve with the times. Mark, on the other hand, has emphasized that the lack of significant physical exertion is a key reason why esports should be considered a separate type of competition, not a sport in the traditional sense. He is particularly concerned about maintaining the important link between the concept of sport and the promotion of physical health. There are clearly very good and valid points on both sides of this fascinating debate. We hope this discussion has given our audience a lot to think about and consider for themselves. Thank you all for watching our program. Good afternoon.